There are many mysteries all over Fenrir. The battle atop Shire between Lord Kazai and King Ingvar. Eliana, the beauty of Vesuva and where she went. And speaking of missing persons, the gods have all vanished. Of course, these are well-known stories that have traveled far and wide across the world by word of mouth. But there's only one mystery that I can speak of because it involves the town in which I live. Just outside the bog is a small town that remains relatively untouched by much. This town is called Venzor, and I was born and raised here. About 2 months ago, an evil creature that I can only really describe as a demon made its way from the Deadlands, through the bog, into our small town. It introduced itself to us as our new master, and asked if any of us had an issue with this. One brave soul spoke up, and with a simple flick of its wrist, cut our man down. It grew deathly quiet, and a smirk crossed over the demon's face. With no complaints from anyone anymore, he demanded we start gathering resources. Every week he would return and demand sacrifice from us. For 2 months we piled food and riches at his feet, every week. And those who failed to provide were taken into the bog, and never heard from again. I had a rather easy job. I provided grain, which we had plenty of. Stockpiling for the winter allowed an easy cushion to fall on if I ever was short on my sacrifice. The town was quick to fall into seclusion. We prayed day in and day out. Even those who believed the gods were gone for good had begun to pray, hoping that someone would hear our calls. A town that used to be quiet and happy was now forced into squalor and slave labor for a false god drunk on his own power. Each and every day, I looked to the sky, examining the clouds and wondering if he was going to bleed us dry and move on to the next city. Lord Kazai had no jurisdiction here, and I envied the protection he gave to his people. King Ingvar was in the same boat, and despite how cruel of a man he could be, I would take his cruelty over the hope-sucking horror that now owned our town. I had grown so desperate that I even began praying to King Ingvar. For maybe, as a man who announced himself as a god, would by small chance hear my call and come save us from this hell. And some went as far as to pray to Aradia, the ruler of the south, to come and free us. Someone must have gotten through to a god I have never heard of, though. I remember the day clearly, the day that Venzor was given hope. 2 people showed up only a day after the demon had come for our resources. I can't even say for sure if they were both people, if I'm being honest. The one who appeared to be a man wore clothes the like of which I had never seen before, and introduced himself to us as Aaron. The one who followed wore clothes that covered every inch of their body, and a face mask which had eyes that glowed an eerie and ghostly green. That one was called Crow. I've heard that there's been an evil demon attacking this village every week. Tell me what you know, Aaron said frankly. The few of us who had met him in the tavern flinched. It was always a fear of ours that it was listening to everything we said. Perhaps it would swoop in and tear the hope right out of us by killing these 2 right here and now. But seeing the one called Crow inspired me. If Crow wasn't human, perhaps they could take care of the beast for us. I spoke up. Yesterday, he came to us, took our grain, our meat. Those who can't afford the weekly sacrifice disappear, and those who attempt to fight are killed with ease, I explained in a panic. My heart was beating out of my chest. Every word I said felt like it could be my last. But if it meant freeing my village, I would gladly die. And even if it didn't, my death would liberate me at the very least. Aaron looked me hard in the eyes and beckoned for me to approach him with a movement of his finger. Cautiously, I approached and he placed a hand on my head. I felt a surge of energy flow through my body, and I tensed, unable to move. My body had frozen, but only a moment later, the feeling vanished and I was able to move once more. Aaron took his hand away and examined it for a moment. "Did you get that?" he asked, now removing his other hand from his friend Crow.
"Yeah, I'll get right on it,"
Crow responded, its voice jumbled as if many people were speaking at once. The sound made my skin crawl. "You all relax. Tonight, things will be dealt with," Aaron said. As he stood with Crow to leave, I reached out and grabbed hold of Aaron's shoulder, shaking and sweating. "Tonight? Are you crazy?" I questioned him. Aaron simply gave me a warm smile and gently removed my hand from his shoulder. I felt rather calm from the action. "Don't you worry. We're professionals," he told me, nodding his head at me in reassurance and stepping outside. As worried as I was for them, I felt completely confident in their abilities as well. That night, I went to bed, wondering if today would be my last. If they failed, would the demon come to us and destroy us next? It was a miracle I even got any sleep at all. But the next day I woke and everything was as it always had been. People were shut up in their homes or drinking their sorrows away. The demon, Aaron, and Crow were nowhere to be seen. I feared the worst had happened and they had failed. But as the week reached its end and we all came to the city square with our sacrifices, the demon did not show up. We waited for hours and hours, wondering if he was testing our resolve. But as the sun began to set, a revelation set on our village. Aaron and his friend Crow had freed us from our captor. Venzor was free at last, and our heroes were never seen again.